Superintendent Dempsey, are we ready to start?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, before I call the meeting to order, there are a few reminders to all members of the audience. Our Mexico Public Education Department COVID-19 response toolkit, which was last revised January 11, 2022. Everyone is required to wear mask while in school building. On school transportation. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, Madam President, we can hear you.
Please wear a face mask, fully of course. Please silence your phones. If you would like to address the board during open forum, we ask you to fill out one of our yellow forms entitled Public Participation at Board Meeting, which is a yellow form that is outside the boardroom. And any member of the audience, if you're in the podium violating these rules, will receive a warning, and continued violation will ultimately result in a removal from the meeting. Thank you. Okay, move forward. Ms. Delgado, can you please take, actually no. So now officially I call to order this Gadsden Independent School District regular school board meeting for Thursday, February 10th, 2022 at 5:05. Ms. Delgado, can you please take roll? Thank you.
Mr. Cano?
Present.
Mr. Castillo?
Present.
Ms. Flores? Ms. Flores?
Present.
Ms. Murillo? Present. Ms. Rodriguez? Present. Madam President, we have established quorum.
Madam
Mr.
President.
Dempsey, I'm not sure what's going on my end.
Right.
Last time it was working beautiful. I'm going to ask our Vice President Castillo to please conduct the meeting because I am having problems over here, if that's okay.
Yes, Madam President. Will we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico, the symbol of perfection among the United cultures. Mrs. Rodriguez, can you please read the mission statement?
The Gadsden Independent School District will ensure that all students will learn by putting education first. The district will provide quality educational opportunities conducive to learning that will facilitate students' individual goals. El Distrito Escolar Independiente de Gadsden se compromete a poner en prioridad la educación de cada estudiante. El distrito proporcionará oportunidades educativas de calidad conducentes a un aprendizaje que facilite las metas individuales de los estudiantes.
Thank you. We'll move on to Superintendent District updates and recognitions.
Madam President, board members, thank you for joining us this evening. Our first item, we'll talk a little bit about a brief legislative update. Just, we just returned from our School Boards Association Institute, got to see the legislative process, and I wanted to maybe bring some of that back and give you a little bit of an update of what's happened since we were there. Next slide, Mr. Smith. Okay, the first slide I have is, what do we know? And I think that's where we begin in this budget to understand there are pieces of this we don't know yet, okay? So we know raises are included in the current legislative proposals. They're in mixed bills, and at some point they could be all combined into one. The current session ends next week, so we know that's progressing along. The governor has the authority to line item veto. That's very important, and we'll get to that in a minute. Legislation obviously requires the governor's signature. House Bill 2 establishes the budget for public education. Funding is based in part on previous year's enrollment. So this year's enrollment will drive next year's budget. And Gadsden ISD is currently a participant in the extended learning time program. That's very important. That added 10 days to our school calendar. And we did that several years ago, and we increased salaries. At the time, we had a 183-day contract for our teachers. We moved it to the required 190 to qualify, and that's already done. So as legislation progresses, when they talk about adding days, Gadsden ISD has already done that, so that would not apply to us because we've already done it. We would capture the dollars connected to it, but we wouldn't be adding another 10 days. And that might be a question that comes to you from staff. A little confusion in the media, are we going to add another 10 days? And no, really, we're one of, I think about 14 districts that have already done that. So just an FYI. Next slide, please. What do we not know? What are the unknowns? We don't know the unit value. Every year, there's a unit value, which is a dollar amount applied to our state equalization guarantee. That's, we also call that operational dollars. And so we don't know that yet. So that usually is released during spring budget, and it's after House Bill 2 has been signed and passed. If there are raises, how will they be calculated? And that's very important, because will they be calculated before or after minimums are set? And if it's after, it's a larger amount we have to encumber to pay, okay? Will averaging language be included? Averaging language is a tool that our finance department use to some categories of employees may get higher raises than others, and that you can add, and that means you could get an average of an amount. The reason why that's important is it could be included in the legislation, and the governor could line item that out. And if she does, it's not averaging, obviously, anymore. And that makes the cost significantly higher. Will minimum salaries be required? And we had a lot of conversation about that last week. Is it level 1, level 2, and level 3 teachers? They're setting minimums, and I think it's very likely those minimums will be reestablished. And what will that look like? Will the minimum wage increase? A lot of conversation around that. We don't know for sure. Looks like it will. That will impact all of our hourly employees, and that sets a new minimum for those hourly salary schedules. Will contributions to ERB, our retirement, increase? I think it's likely, but we don't have a number yet, I don't believe, on that. Will the cost of medical benefits increase? Possibly. I think both of those are pretty likely to occur. And can we meet the required increases and keep all staff? So this last bullet is probably the most important one. I want the board to understand the process we're using. We're spending quite a bit of time making sure we understand the enrollment and the staffing of every campus and every department. trying to create as much space as possible and be as efficient as we possibly can, because when these raises come in, we believe they're going to be significant. And so our goal is to protect every current employee we have, and then obviously we have to meet the raises. So you may start hearing about transfers within the district. So if we have an individual out of school and we look at the enrollment, and based on the enrollment we say, well, there's 3 third grade teachers. Based on enrollment, they really should only have 2, but the neighboring school needs a third grade teacher. There's a very good likelihood we're going to start doing some transfers there, okay? Now, there's a process, and we want to work with our union partners. In the CBA, it talks about, in general, it's last in, first out. So there's a process we're going to have to work through there, but you got to keep in mind that if, for example, I'm the last teacher hired, but I have a K-8 license, and the neighboring school needs a bilingual endorsed teacher, I won't be the one moving. They're going to have to go look for the last in, first out bilingual endorsed teacher. So there's caveats to it, and that's kind of a simple example at elementaries. When we get to high school, it does get a little bit more complicated, because you have to be endorsed in that specific subject. I can't move an English teacher to cover a math position at another high school. So those things are starting to happen, and we're starting to work towards those things, and I wanted you to know that the goal being protect all current employees, and then that way we feel confident that we'll have enough room when the increases come in to build a budget and be ready for the next school year. Okay? All right. Our next item is our student representative, Mr. Flores, who is a freshman at ST High.
My name is Dante Flores, and I am a freshman at Santa Teresa High School. I am on the Student Leadership Program, and I am an ROTC. Some good things at our school are the new teachers. We would like to welcome Ms. Concha for PE, Mr. Tarango for Culinary, Ms. Nunez for Spanish, and Ms. Perez for the SPED department. The students are enjoying the new teachers we have. In regards to sports, our freshman and JV teams are doing good in basketball. In addition to that, baseball and softball and track are starting their seasons. Some things we are working on is finding new teachers for the science department and improving how students understand the Edmentum program.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. We appreciate that update and appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our next item is board member report. Ms. Murillo, do you want to start us this evening?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. I first want to say congratulations on all the counselors. Happy Counselors Week. I know people have been treating you guys with little gifts and a little token appreciation for you guys and everybody else, because we don't have a meeting next week. I gave all of you guys some chocolates for Valentine's, so happy early Valentine's Day. And then thank you so much for our Representative Flores, student representative. It's hard to come up here and talk in front of a bunch of people, so thank you. Keep doing it, because we need young people like you coming up, and hopefully more take that initiative, so thank you for that. Also, we went to Santa Fe, my colleagues here, along with Mr. Dempsey, and it was very nice to catch up with other people, get to know our legislators. Went on behalf of Mesquite Elementary to receive an award, and so it was a nice trip. Also, what else? Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Dempsey, because every time that someone comes into the podium, and it takes a lot to come in and speak and talk about concerns, and so I want to thank you for following up, because sometimes they do come and say concerning things, and I know we put a lot on you, and please give us answers. So I want to thank you for answering all of our questions. I'm sorry, and and for following up. I mean, I know sometimes it's a lot, but I really want to appreciate that. And that is all on my side. Oh, sorry. Tomorrow there's coffee with a principal in Santa Teresa Elementary, and hopefully parents can join us over there. And thank you for everybody who's online. I saw a couple of people, and so it is working, sharing on social media. Thank you.
Mr. Cano?
Good evening, everyone. And again, counselors, I'm going to ditto what my comrade said over here. Congratulations. You guys do a wonderful job. And, yeah, I mean, with the cases loads that you guys have, great job. Keep doing a wonderful job. Unfortunately, it wasn't as privileged with my colleagues to go to Santa Fe to speak with the representatives down there, but I know that they represented Gadsden very well, and I thank you for keeping me updated on the information going down there. Tomorrow, they're having also a community meeting at Santa Teresa High School, and at 10 o'clock, and hopefully everybody can also make it there. And also, I'm going to take a page out of Ms. Rodriguez's her saying is, parents, please, if you want to keep updated and everything, please attend coffee with the principals as to whatever school, whatever as the location that you're at. Please go to it and attend to it, so that way we can get more of our information out there, so that way we won't be left out in the cold when it happens. And that is all I got today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cano. Mr. Castillo?
Thank you, sir. I also attended the Board Institute. I'm not a fan because it's politicians, but it was productive. We did talk to our representatives, Mr. Madrid and Mr. Lara. We did have good conversation, and we tried to get along with everybody else. Again, I did my part, right? But good. It was a good outing. Lesson learned. But yeah, thank you to everybody. Mr. Flores, short and sweet, but food for thought. Put us to work. I know it's kind of weird, but put us to work. That's what we're here for. We're here for you. So talk to your fellow students, whoever. We got some meetings to go. Talk to them and put us to work. That's what we're here for. We're here for you. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Ms. Rodriguez?
It might sound like we repeat many things, but I think we all have a different take of the things that we attend. I really enjoyed really enjoy whenever we go to Santa Fe or Albuquerque. This board member institute over in Santa Fe was it's a great experience because, unlike Mr. Castillo, speaking to the legislators is very, very important. It's a process, and seeing them at work and understanding their perspective, and sometimes what we are seeing or what we understand, and sometimes understanding the whole process is quite interesting. So I want to thank our legislators. We have our reps, which is Ms. Doreen Gallegos, Mr. Ray Lara, and Mr. William Madrid, and then we have our Senator Joseph Cervantes. So thank you for the work that you do up there, and it was a pleasure being able to speak to them. I also want to thank the counselors. I think you all are doing a great job, and I know there's still lots of work to do. I appreciate every single thing that you all do for our children. And we celebrate, this is the National School Counselors Week, but I think every day is something that we need to shout out, that they're doing something for our kids, and it's for their future. And so students know that the counselors are there for you to support you and to give you any advice or suggestions of how to continue forward with your education, and in many other areas as well. And so I know Mr. Cano spoke about attending the coffee with the principal. I think it is, I appreciate when parents come to us, and I think both Mr. Castillo and Mr. Cano said something to this. I appreciate that parents, teachers, community members, and sometimes even the students do come to us and they reach out for some information. I think that as a team, if we want a team to grow, we need to know, we need to know the game plan of what's in the playbook, right? So working together and creating that dialogue and understanding how things function, and sometimes knowing that it's not changes that we want to make, it's things that sometimes are already set. It's just that we weren't aware of it, or perhaps never even saw those in writing. But we're here, as Mr. Castillo said, we're here to support you and to make, the progress in our district. So I think that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Flores, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Mr. Castillo, go ahead and continue running the meeting just to make sure, but I really appreciate it. So as far as my report, I failed to wish a happy birthday to all our January babies, so happy belated birthday to all our January babies. And then happy birthday to our February babies. We sure are glad you're born this month and that you're part of the GISD family. I also attended with my colleagues an MSBA Board Institute in Santa Fe. I enjoyed the snow, but I didn't enjoy driving. I'm not good, even though it didn't snow a lot. My heart was racing all the way up there, but thank God that we all arrived safely. And I do want to thank Mr. Flores. I didn't capture what school you're from, young man, but thank you for coming out and giving your report. And then also I wanted to acknowledge that we had the opportunity to visit a little bit with our state senator, Joseph Cervantes, and we also visited over dinner, so thank you for dinner, Superintendent Dempsey, Representative Lara, and Representative Madrid. Delicious, and we talked and had dialogue over dinner. Really enjoyed that. And while we didn't get to talk to Ms. Doreen Gallegos, we did see her down at the, I think it's called the Roundhouse, when we were being acknowledged for our, being acknowledged for Mesquite Elementary's accomplishments. And we did get to visit a little bit with our Lieutenant Governor, Howie Morales. That's all on my behalf, Mr. Castillo. I'm Superintendent Dempsey, sorry.
Thank you. Moving on to Human Resources Report. This is found online. And do I have a motion?
Mr. Castillo, I'd like to make a motion that we, actually, can you repeat that, Mr. Castillo? Sorry, there's a delay over here.
Yeah, we're going to need a motion for the agenda, modification of the agenda.
Oh, yes, sorry. So, yes, I'd like to make a motion that we keep the agenda as is. Sorry about that.
Can you repeat your motion, please?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the agenda as is.
Okay, President Flores has made the motion to accept the agenda as is. Any questions, comments? Mr. Superintendent?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have another motion?
Madam President, can I make a motion to accept the regular school board meetings for January 27th, 2022 as is?
Mr. Cano has made the motion to accept school board minutes for January 22nd, 2020, January 27th, 2022. Mr. Superintendent?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have another motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, Mrs. Rodriguez has made the motion to accept the consent agenda. Any questions, comments?
I'd like to make a comment. I had several questions on the consent agenda, and I really appreciate Ms. Martinez taking the time to guide me through it and give me lots of information. So I appreciate that, and I know it's a lot of work, and especially around this time, but you're doing a great job, so thank you for that. I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and moving on to open forum, Mrs. Delgado, do we have anybody?
Sir President, we do have open forum. We have Mr. Aaron Wolfley.
Vice President Castillo, if I may remind you, or Ms. Mary, I usually ask Ms. Mary Lou to take time as soon as the presenters are speaking. That way they get their 3 minutes allotted time. Thank you, Ms. Mary Lou.
Madam President, I will send my phone after we talk. Mr. Wolfley, let me just read this. It says, Board President shall be responsible for recognizing speakers, maintain proper order and adhering to a time limit of 30 minutes for all presentations and a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. In order to ensure that each individual has the opportunity, you're going to be the only one, so you have 3 minutes. Personal attacks upon board members, staff personnel, or other persons in attendance or absent by individuals who address the board are discouraged. Presenters are cautioned that statements or representations concerning other than that convey unjustly unfavorable impressions may subject the presenter to civil action for defamation. Policies KE, KEB, KEC, and KED are provided by the board for disposition of legitimate complaints, including those individuals. Mr. Wolfley, go ahead.
I'm back again to talk about the same thing I've been talking about all week. I was excited to hear that everybody went to dinner with Mr. Savante, their senator. Thank you. I asked my school board member at that dinner, did you sit in a straight line and were able to have a conversation? Or did you sit around a table face to face interacting like normal humans do? I asked this question because on page 27 of the toolkit, my children can't do that at school. But you can do that with the senator. Now, at the dinner with the senator, did anybody ask them, is he advocating, is anybody talking about taking masks off? Did anybody ask him that why on page 28, the state of New Mexico discriminates against unvaccinated children? Where we pull them out and make them sit in their own hotel room because they're unvaccinated due to their parents' choice. Did we ask him about the toolkit that we continue to get? We got a nice update this week of it. Did we ask them why we continue to recommend masking kids outside? I'm at a loss that I've come to this meeting since the school year began, and there's been no discussion, no advocacy on my child's part. Nobody tells, when we sit at dinner with the senator, what are we doing? Everybody else is dropping COVID restrictions. Everybody. Nevada did it today immediately, but we don't. My child sits in a line and gets castigated at school because he has to wear a mask. Mind you, the mask I'm wearing is not a medical face mask. If you think this does anything, you're kidding yourself. This political theater that we do, is anybody advocating in the state that we stop it? Has anybody taken the moral courage to say anything? Do we just sit here and pretend like it's all fine? Mr. Cervantes, might I remind you, tweeted out the other day that 81% of Hispanic students in the state of New Mexico read below the standard. That is embarrassing. It's embarrassing that I have to send my children to a state that can't even educate their... Are we doing something about it? I think the answer is no. I get the same answer every time. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your service. I saw some people with their masks down.
Moving on to action items. Action item A, Facility Master Plan, Addendum 1. Mr. Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Mr. Gallegos is going to help present this item.
Good afternoon, Board President Flores, board members, Superintendent Dempsey. I bring before you for action for approval the FMP, which is the Facility Master Plan Addendum Number 1. Remember, I discussed this 2 weeks ago, indicating that many of our fire panel systems have outlived their useful life cycle, which is 15 years. So we would like to participate and ask the PSCOC for some support and funding the replacement of these. I have the list there. All of these are either past the life cycle or at the end of the life cycle, which when we approve this, we will get submitted to the PSCOC and PSFA as their annual update on our facility master plan, which will then allow us to be able to request funding for their assistance. I stand for any questions.
Does anybody have any questions, comments?
I have a question. Mr. Gallegos, I'm just curious why this was not part of the initial FMP when it was written. I understand there's a cycle, right, for each item, and in this case, the fire panel systems. So how was it that we didn't include that? Why was that so?
I did ask ARC, Ms. Eileen, about why that weren't listed in the original, and she said that's not part of the regular facility master plan updates unless requested. So lesson learned. 5 years from now, when it has to be done again, we will definitely put that, or I'm going to remind Nancy that you have to put that on the request to update the fire safety systems in all the schools for them to look at that. They might have to bring in some expert or something, because most of those people are architects, but they can look at it and say, yeah, this is out of compliance or out of life cycle. At least now we will have a definitely scheduled identification of these, and as we start replacing them, supplying that information and keeping track of that information so that we can present that to the next round of facility master plan. When we do a facility master plan, they come in and visit with myself and the maintenance department quite extensively, gathering data from us. So this is something that we can present to them next time.
Great, thank you. So since we learned about this one, did they have a list of other items that we as a district need to have, that aren't included with the list that they have? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a discussion, I guess it's, we need to have it with the facility master plan architect, ARC, that company, because as you saw and have been through the facility master plan, it is multiple volumes of information that they look at all these factors. They do have a list of that information that they go through and look at certain things, the walls, the foundations, et cetera, the lighting. So we will ask them to make sure that the fire panels and anything concerning the fire panels, such as the strobes, the horns, the risers, the fire risers, are all on their list next time so that they can take a look at them. All right?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Comments? Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept action item 9, Facility Master Plan Addendum 1.
Mr. Rodriguez has made a motion to accept action item 9A, Facility Master Plan Addendum 1. Mr. Superintendent,
So recommend.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to discussion items. Discussion item 10A, NSBA Excellence in Student Achievement Award. Mr. Superintendent.
Madam President, board members, this is that time of year that we get an opportunity here to recognize staff and community members. And so somewhat, I know Ms. Morillo is new, and we only do this once a year, so it's probably good for all of us to review it. The New Mexico School Boards Association has initiated this award. They provide one. We typically here at Gadsden have purchased additional awards. And so the process we've used the last couple of years is we ask for nominations from our staff or students or parents for 2 members that would fall under the category of support staff. We would accept a nomination for teachers under that category, and then administrators. The reason we had 2 awards for support staff is it's a pretty large population. You're talking about custodial, maintenance, S&P. It's a pretty large group, and so we wanted to we felt like that, because of that population, we need to increase that category. And so then we would have a committee to review those, and then bring those to the committee, to the board for approval. And then you would need to submit that documentation to the School Boards Association. I believe the March 11th is the deadline on that. And then later in the year when we receive those plaques, recognize those individuals. And I want to thank Ms. Delgado. You can see in the back where there's pictures of individuals that have been recognized on the Achievement Award, and then outside, our new displays puts their name up. And so the goal is, over time, we'll just fill that board up with individuals who have just done terrific things for our students, and we can offer that recognition. We're open to any input or ideas you might have to improve the process, or some thoughts that you might have about it.
Any questions, comments?
I have a question. Mr. Dempsey, the committee who is part of the committee to review those once those nominations come in? Let me go back a little bit. So the nominations are per campus, or how are we doing that?
District-wide. They're district-wide.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, and I believe we used last year's winners as a portion of the committee. Now, sometimes it's hard to pull them all together, but for the most part, we used last year's individual recognized as the committee. So that's what we've done.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, sir. Are you going to speak, Madam President?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Moving on to discussion item 10B, Board Member Committee Volunteers. Mr. Superintendent.
Madam President, board members, so we had talked about committee assignments, if you will, and really we're asking for the board to volunteer for assignment on a committee. 2 of these committees are mandated by New Mexico Administrative Code, and that's, I'm going to call it the Finance Budget Committee and then the Audit Committee. Those are requirements, and I'd need 2 volunteers for each of those. And I'll give you a little bit of a brief kind of overview, if you will, of the Finance and Budget Committee. Really, this committee reviews the monthly and quarterly reports as provided by our CFO, Ms. Martinez. So it's more of a regular review of what gets provided in the report on our financials, okay? The audit really should be different members of the board, because the audit is the review of the previous year's financials. And then what happens with that is that you do You have a meeting prior to, and you get to meet with the auditors, and they explain the process. And then at the end of the audit, they'll review with you and give you an idea of things they may have found. Typically, that information it's embargoed until the state auditor approves it, and then that audit report is released and is a public document once the state auditor has approved it. Okay, those are the two required committees. Now, the other committees that here in Gadsden, the board has agreed to have, and what I want this board to understand is you can keep these, you can add to them, you can remove some. It's really up to the board's decision to do so. So we have athletics, and the lead of that committee is Ms. Nugis. They meet about 4 to 6 times per year. Usually what they're going to do in that is there may be a rule change or something of that nature, and she wants to run it through a committee to vet it a little bit and say, well, here's the rule change. How would we want this worded? Maybe we want to make sure it's fair to students, and what is the impact on students, and get those thoughts. Next, we have, the district has a bilingual committee. The lead of that is Mr. Leyva. About 3 meetings a year, usually kind of around, a little bit around some testing results, which might give some guidance there, and so about 3 times a year. We also would have the technology committee. That committee, I'm going to just mention to the board that, 4 years ago, technology was a huge conversation, and there was a real feel that we were behind. And I know I've probably said this before to you, I'll note that we went through our strategic plan and had those community meetings. Technology did not surface as a major priority. And I'm going to credit a lot of hard work within our technology department to address many concerns that were brought up 4 years prior. So I'm really proud of that work, but we don't want to slip back. We want our students to have the most advanced technology and have that available to them. About 3 meetings a year, could be more, it kind of depends. There's some pieces that Mr. Snowdy's the lead on it. DACC, Dr. Torres is the lead on that. Now, that's Doñana Community College, and so a lot of the work there has to do with higher ed opportunities and how do we pave a path for our students, and how do we make sure we're providing opportunities for them to engage in that, all right? And then Hvac, and Hvac stands for Student Health Advisory Council. Ms. Cregan is our lead. They'll meet 2 to 4 times per year, and that really is wrapped around student medical and mental health needs, and making sure that we're working with like our student-based health center and those avenues, and even community partners in hospitals and doctors to make sure we're meeting the needs of our students. And I think probably that committee, I would maybe even comment that post-pandemic, going to be a very important committee, because we're going to probably need to meet some needs of our students that we didn't prior to the pandemic. So that's what I prepared, and I think definitely the board has the authority to assign additional committees, eliminate these, but I'm hoping today we can kind of get started on maybe some volunteers for these committees. Is anybody interested? Maybe I'll just throw out, is anybody interested in being on Finance and Budget Committee? Ms. Rodriguez, would you be? Ms. Murillo?
Question.
Yes, ma'am?
On the Hvac, you said how often do they meet?
2 to 4 times per year is what I'm going to say. It could increase. Ms. Cregan's with us. I believe she is. Ms. Cregan, do you want to comment? She can maybe guide us a little bit.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. The School Health Advisory Committee will meet about 2 to 4 times a year, and like Mr. Dempsey was saying, we look at the health and safety needs of students in the district.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Krieger. We sure appreciate that input. Audit Committee, again, we probably want to make this a different 2. Since we have, my advice is, since we have Budget and Finance, we have Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Murillo, we'd want a different 2 on Audit. Do I have any volunteers for Audit?
I'd like to volunteer for that one, sir.
Okay, I have Ms. Flores and Mr. Castillo. Okay, athletics?
Take athletics.
Mr. Kano wanted to be a part of that. Do I have another? And you don't have to have 2 on each, but it's nice to, I just wanted to, give you that opportunity if you choose to. So do I have another volunteer for athletics? Okay, Ms. Rodriguez. Okay, bilingual. You get to work with Mr. Leyva, who always keeps us on our toes. Any volunteers for bilingual?
I volunteer for that one, sir.
Okay, we have Ms. Flores. Any other interest? And again, you don't have to have 2. It's okay to have 1. Okay. Technology, Mr. Snowdy. Anyone interested in technology?
I'll take 1 for the team.
Mr. Castillo, that's probably a pretty good one because we've done, most of the work's done. Right? Doñana Community College. Ms.
I'd like to
Murillo.
continue on that one, sir.
Was that Ms. Flores who's interested? Ms. Flores, I have you down there. And then our Student Health Advisory Council, Ms. Cregan.
I'll jump into
Okay,
that one too.
Mr. Cano, anyone, and Ms. Rodriguez. I probably should have mentioned, I didn't, you don't want to have 3, because if you have 3 members, then you have a quorum, and I'll have to advertise it as such, okay? Is the board, are we missing some committees? Are there some committees you might like to see created?
Superintendent Dempsey, just do we have a second for GACC, because we do need a second person?
I'm still part of it unless you want somebody else, right?
No, that is cool. I just didn't hear who else volunteered.
I didn't know if I was.
So, Madam President, board members, what I wrote down, let's just review DACC. I wrote down Ms. Flores, and Ms. Murillo had shared, but I think Mr. Castillo is on that. So you just have to guide me on.
You're fine. If you want it, you're fine.
Okay.
They meet every 3 months. They meet every 3 months in East Mesa, so have it.
And I appreciate, it's a very important partnership we have with them, and I appreciate, sometimes it's a little conflict, sometimes it's hard to get there, right? Sometimes they run into our board meetings, but very important partnership. It takes care of our students at Alta Vista, not to mention blended senior year, and then our dual credit pieces that are, real important to us, so I appreciate that. And so I'll loop back. Any committees you think we're missing or you'd like to see created?
I don't know if there's something of that nature, but is there anything with the S&P, the student nutrition? Would that fall into one of them, or?
It could. Really, the board, you could have a committee really on anything you chose, and you don't, just because you create a committee, you might do some work on it, and then you might say, okay, we got our work accomplished, and you can eliminate. So a suggestion is one specific to student nutrition. Okay. Do I assume that you would be willing to volunteer for that as well, Ms. Rodriguez? Anyone else interested in student nutrition? Okay. Any other committee I might have missed?
I do. I have, I don't know if you guys have it or had it in the past, but I've seen in other districts with involving student council, with admins, yourself, and a board member. I really like that, seen in other places, and it's something that I'm not sure about the name. I need to look into it.
I love the idea. Let me maybe offer a suggestion. We have a district leadership council that's a group of students. Mr. Flores is part of that group. I would be honored to have one or two board members join us for that, and it would really, this is a very impressive group of young people who are very candid with me, and it really is nice to hear their experience, but I don't want you to walk in to think that they just tell me what I want to hear. They're very candid with me of the things that don't work. And so I would the board be comfortable keeping that on and just adding, I'll add it as a committee. These individuals would just become part of it. Is that okay? District leadership? And Ms. Murillo, is it safe to say you'd like to be a part of that?
Yes,
You're welcome. Okay. Any other board members like to be a part of that?
Just seems like there's so many.
How often do you meet? And what days?
We meet, I want to say it's monthly until we get into testing, and then we really don't want to pull kids out of, because we meet as a whole, we bring the whole group together. And so it's monthly sometimes, and then some months, like in the summer, we don't meet, and then we get into testing, we don't meet because we want to pull them out. So I'm going to say probably 5 or 6 times a year we meet, and it's usually during the school day. So that's the other side of it, is it's typically, we meet about 10 o'clock, kind of go over, some topics, we'll present to the group, and then they'll give us some feedback, and then we usually have some kind of meal together, and then, they disperse back.
And then my last question regarding that, is there like a specific day of the week or it's just random?
I'm sorry.
I didn't understand that.
Ms. Flores, President Flores, would you mind repeating that?
Definitely. Is the meeting day of the week the same, or is it just random?
Ms. Delgado, you're going to have to help me here. I believe they're set up prior to the school year, and they're pretty regular. It's like the second Wednesday of each month, or third, or something of that nature of each month. And I can get those dates to you really early.
So I'm interested tentatively, because I'd have to look at my schedule for work too.
Okay?
Would it be possible to alternate, or once you make the commitment? I'm thinking, because you mentioned that it's about 4 to 5 times, so if we all probably have the opportunity, I don't know if it's possible for everyone.
Madam President, board members, absolutely. We just have to be aware that I can't have 3 of you unless I advertise an open meeting. And as long as we are just watchful of that, no problem whatsoever. I would love to have you there. I think it will help you see a student perspective of what we're trying to accomplish.
What I was thinking is possibly having, once we see the schedule, maybe we can each, whatever
sign
day.
up for those dates?
Right. That way, everyone has an opportunity to see what it looks like.
Okay. I think we can accomplish that. So here's what I'd say. I'll figure out how I'm going to list that on the website, because it's a little unique. But then once we get those dates, we'll reach out to the board and say, here they are, and we'll let you sign up for those dates, and then you can join us. And they're spread out around the district. So it also gives you an opportunity to get into the schools and kind of see how things work on a daily basis, okay?
Great.
All right, thank you.
Good with committees now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, moving on to discussion, item 10C, scheduled board work session, understanding school budgets. Mr. Superintendent.
Madam President, board members, I might even consider looking at C and D kind of in conjunction, if you're comfortable with that. D is scheduled board work session, GISD facilities and facility master plan review. Through some conversations, I think it was pretty clear that as a group, it'd be good to maybe do some reviews of school budget and get a little bit of a baseline, maybe knowledge and understanding of how those are generated, because there's a lot of moving pieces to it. And then, as we mentioned this evening, a lot of moving pieces to facilities and understanding, and there's always, it's sometimes a little shocking how much need is out there in terms of facility and how much money actually is available to address all those needs. So what was suggested to do a couple workshops. My idea with workshops is, and we could do these a couple different ways. What we've done in the past is typically a Saturday morning workshop, and we could definitely do those. We could also, it is possible to do a shorter, abbreviated workshop in an afternoon prior to a board meeting. So I don't know if that's something the board might be interested in. That may be a little bit more difficult for several of our members because obviously you're working during the day. So I might suggest the Saturday morning, but if you'd like to try something else, you just guide me. So the tentative days I'm suggesting would be Saturday, March 5th for the budget workshop, and Saturday, March 12th for the facility workshop. We also have February, Saturday, 26th as an other option for either one of those. So I would maybe we begin with, does March 5th and March 12th work for our board members? Saturday, March 5th, Saturday, March 12th. Is that a problem for anyone? Madam President, board members, if I schedule these during spring break, then you know I'm off my game here.
Can you repeat that, sir?
Madam President, we're just confirming where spring break is in our calendar. It's March 21st through the 25th. So none of those would be in conjunction, neither of those dates would be in conjunction with spring break.
Sorry, I can only do the 5th.
You can do the 5th?
That's the only day that I could do it.
Would you like to, what if we move the facility one to the 26th? Would that work for everyone?
I'm not going to be here any weekend.
You're in training.
Only the 5th.
Okay. Do we want to try, this will be very abbreviated, but do we want to try to do like a 4 o'clock work session prior to the board meeting at one of our scheduled meetings, and then we could try to get started on a Facility 101 component. Now, the good thing about the facility, the reason why I'm saving that facility master plan, it's a living document, but it exists. So it's, we really could go through it individually and see a lot of the components of it. And it's actually a very good study of our community and the communities we serve. So do we want to maybe try that as I look at a board meeting date and then schedule a work session at 4 o'clock and see if we get started there, and if it doesn't work, we'll loop back and do a work session. Is that okay? Okay, I don't have a date right now, but I'll get that to everyone, and we'll try to work on a short abbreviated work session for facilities.
Superintendent Dempsey?
Yes, ma'am.
If you're considering our next board meeting, that's a no-go for me because I've got some training I've got to do.
Madam President, can you repeat that?
Okay, do you need me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay, so if you were, Superintendent Dempsey, if you were considering for our next board meeting, which is Thursday, the 24th of February, that would be a no-go for me because I've got some prior commitments.
So, do I understand correctly, the next meeting, the next regular board meeting, no. Okay, so she's not available. So I would go to our March, I'd look at our March board meeting and then do a 4 o'clock at our March meeting. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that would, what did you say that day is? March 10th, 2022. So we'll schedule a 4 o'clock work session for facilities for the March 10th meeting, and then budget March would be Saturday, March 5th. Does that work for everybody? Saturday, March 5th would be the budget workshop. Now, if you have specific topics you'd like us to make sure we include, if you'll email those to me as soon as possible, I can make sure that the presentations address those specific items. Okay? All right, I appreciate everybody aligning calendars.
Good. Okay, so then moving on to discussion item 10E. Gadsden High School Varsity Gym HVAC replacement. Mr. Superintendent.
Madam President, board members, Mr. Gallegos will present this item.
Hopefully, I've selected a good position for these boards here. Again, good evening, Board President Flores, board members, and Superintendent Dempsey. I bring before you for discussion and questions the Gadsden High School HVAC replacement. Gadsden High School Varsity Gym has swamp coolers. It has two very large swamp coolers up on top. And then the locker rooms that we built in 2010 also have swamp coolers. So as we have been moving towards getting all of the district under HVAC, which is refrigerated air, we have now come up with a project to do the replacement at Gadsden High School and the locker rooms. I'm going to remove this here and walk over here so you can see this. Right here, it's the removing the units. Right here's the gym area. There are two very large units right here, gigantic. They're the size of about probably 10 feet by 20, 25 feet in cubed. We're going to remove those two units, those big swamp coolers. We already have the ductwork going in here. We'll leave that ductwork in place. We will also remove the two units over the boys and the girls locker room, and then the fresh air unit here, as well as the lobby swamp cooler. Going to remove all those, and we're going to replace them with a new big 25-ton RTU, rooftop unit. They're called RTUs for a rooftop unit. It provides you heating as well as air conditioning. So it'll be a 25-ton here, a 25-ton here, and then we're going to add one more 25-ton, because if you've been in Gadsden High School gym and you went to school there, you remember this used to be locker rooms and upstairs and downstairs. That all got demoed back in 2010, 2011 timeframe. So we have to add some more refrigerated air here so that we can accommodate refrigerated air in this large space. We will also then put a rooftop unit over the boys' locker room, over the girls' locker room, and over the concession stand area, or the lobby area. That's pretty simple. I stand for questions. We actually have our RFP, request for proposal. Request for proposals, when you ask contractors to come in, they have to fill out a documentation, provide us with a notebook so that we can look at their credentials, a price, and then if we want to, we do an interview with them, and that's how we select our contractor. One advantage that I have taken because of the delay of equipment coming in due to COVID and other factors is not only for Gadsden High School, but for Anthony and Berino. We have already ordered that equipment because we wanted to get here in the summer. Right now, Gadsden equipment, the first 3 units are supposed to arrive in April. That's the big 325-tonners, and the other units in June. So once we select our contractor, as long as those units arrive as they're supposed to be, they're going to be ready to go to work, and they don't have to do the order and then wait another 5 to 6 months. It's taking about 20 weeks to get any HVAC equipment in, which is 5 months lead time. I stand for questions.
Any questions, comments?
Mr. Gallegos, the contractors, what does their warranty look like, and how, in the time that once they complete the project, how much time do we get, and how good are they coming back if there's a need? on making any,
Whenever we give a contract to a contractor, what's called substantial completion, when they're done to the degree that we accept the project, they might have some finishing things to do, but we accept the project from that date forward, we have 1-year warranty from the contractor. If it happens to be a roofing project, we have a 2-year warranty from a roofing contractor. So they all vary, the warranties. And then after that, in a roofing project, we have another up to 20, so another 18 years of warranty by the manufacturer of the materials. For this portion, the HVAC units, they come with their own warranty of 5 years for the compressor. So if the compressor goes out within 5 years, then in this case, it's going to be Train. Train would be replacing those compressors. So basically, the warranty is 1 year, unless it's a specific component.
so what about, I mean, let's hope that we don't go back to where we were before, but during the pandemic, of course, those weren't being utilized, right? And so we didn't know if they were going to be functioning correctly. If we were in that situation, do they extend the 1-year warranty depending on the situation, or it's a 1 year whether you use it and you know that if it's going to be functioning properly or not?
And it depends on the situation. Right now, we're going through some HVAC meetings with systems that were saying, wait a minute, we put this in the summer, so the cooling was working, but now when we convert it over and start using the heating, we're not getting what we expect. So Ms. Vela, myself, Memo from HVAC, we've been meeting with those companies saying, well, we need to fix this. And I expect that when you have issues, that whatever issues we have in now, we put it a warranty work order, that if it passes that 1 year, they're pretty good at coming back and making sure that we do get that straightened out. So that's what we're working on. Haven't had many problems. Most contractors, the contract says 1 year warranty, but the ones that we're dealing with usually have come in, if I call them in at 14 months, they'll say, okay, we'll go take care of it, because we just found out about this situation. So most of our contractors have not said, hey, 1 year's up, but when we hit 2 years and 3 years, you can't be calling them back forever.
The reason I ask this is because I understand that the gym that was remodeled recently, or it hasn't been that long, apparently the HVAC system is not working properly. The kids are there at 6 in the morning and it's cold. So I believe that's a big issue, right? If it's not, I mean, I don't know what the problem might be, but that's why I was thinking about that, Could it be that, it wasn't functioning, it wasn't being utilized, and so now we know that this is happening.
And that's a maintenance situation. Right now, we have swamp coolers are one thing, and we have a heating system. That's a different system. So when we put this new system in, they'll be combined. So I will ask Memo tomorrow to check into that and see why the heating system is not working, because currently Gadsden High School has 2 systems. Has the swamp coolers, which don't work, especially when it's humid, and when you get a lot of people in there. Swamp coolers will only lower your temperature approximately 20 degrees from what's outside. So if it's 100 degrees outside, you're going to get 80 degrees at the best. If it's 95 degrees outside, you can get 75 degrees at the best. Then you put 1,600 people in there, or even 1,000 people, and that body heat's going to raise it back up. And I guess Miss Jessica might have something about the heating.
Thank you, Mr. Gallegos. Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Dempsey. In that situation you just brought up with the Panther Gym, it is an issue with, they are fairly new, and Mr. Gallegos was talking about how we switched over to heating. What's happening is that those units, the Mitsubishi units, Train is a partner with Mitsubishi, and so Train provides the controls for Mitsubishi, but apparently, and Train was out there today working on the programming. There was a problem with the Mitsubishi units communicating with Train. So that's what's causing it. I think I will talk to him in the morning, but I think it's been addressed and fixed by Train. Okay? Thank you.
And as we go to more and more technology controlling things, the communication is a difficult situation. Just like with people, if you don't get the right component, the train component doesn't communicate with the Mitsubishi, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't convert it to heating and stuff, okay? But I know that they've been working on that. We've had Train out, and Train, we've told them that they need to support us. From now on, we call them our other GISD members, because we're all a train school. Every unit in the district is becoming trained. These new components, Mitsubishi is the ones that we've recently tried, and they work well at Chaparral Elementary. They've worked well at Loma Linda. San Miguel, we're tweaking some stuff. La Unión, we're tweaking some stuff. Those are the newest schools, and then the Panther Gym. All right? Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And moving on to our last discussion item, quarterly budget report for the month ending December 31st, 2021. Mr. Superintendent.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Martinez will present this item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. I bring to you the quarterly budget report for the month ended December 31st, 2021. Operational fund revenues as of December 31st were $64,680,666, which represents 50.38% of budgeted revenues. Expenditures were $55,626,245, which is approximately 31.57% of budgeted expenditures. As of December 31st, our operational cash balance before loans was $66.3 million. After temporary loans to other grant funds of $7 million, that amount was $59.2 million. As of December 31st, the district was owed approximately $9.2 million from grant fund expenditures and $1.5 million from student nutrition. Total revenues for all funds were $110 million, and revenues were $110 million, and expenditures were $100.3 million. Direct instruction expenditures plus encumbrances for the operational fund were $75 million, or 63.5% of the total operational fund expenditures. All bank accounts were in compliance with pledge collateral. If you refer back to Exhibit A, outstanding reimbursements, you can see that there was a total of $10.7 million in outstanding reimbursements. And of that, $3.8 million was due for ESSER 2 funds. Sir, any questions? We did do the internal review at 3 of the schools, and as you can see there were no procurement, credit card purchases, or after-the-fact POs or bank deposit findings. Questions?
Any questions, comments? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Vice President Castillo, I just wanted to say that while her other colleagues, Miss Erica, and I'm failed to remember the other lady's name, they do excellent work. I have missed you, Miss Ladine, so it's good to see your face. Glad to see you this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, do I have a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to go to closed session.
Okay, Mr. Cano has made the motion to go into closed session, personnel session pursuant to 10-15-1, H2-2, NMSA 1978, as amended for superintendents and associate superintendents report on recent personnel action and issues, employees on administrative leave with pay, employee grievances, and employee issues. Mr. Superintendent,
So recommend.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Mr. Vice President,
Aye.
we would need a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Delgado, can you have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Cano?
Aye.
Mr. Castillo?
Aye.
Ms. Flores?
Aye.
Ms. Murillo?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Delgado. That motion has passed. We are now in closed session.